Hi everyone, welcome back. You know I love diving into your British TV opinions, so I recently asked for your most loved or hated sitcoms, and today we're tackling two shows that were practically twins, Happy Ever After and Terry and June. Now you might be thinking, why are you lumping these two together? Well, because they pretty much share the same scenario, star the same iconic duo, Terry, Scott and June Whitfield, and feature incredibly similar character dynamics. You'll soon see why these two shows are inextricably linked in the annals of British comedy. So let's dive in and find out what made these cosy, comforting sitcoms so beloved, and what, if anything, people found not so charming. Terry, Scott and June Whitfield first worked together between 1968 and 1974 in most of the episodes of a BBC comedy sketch series called Scott On, where each week there was a different theme. The Scott On sketch series showcased Scott's comedic range, including his willingness to drag up or dress in outlandish costumes for whatever occasion. This suggests a more varied and perhaps more physical comedy style than his later sitcom roles. During this time they appeared as the next door neighbours in the 1972 Bless This House film. In one Scott On sketch, Scott and Whitfield played a married couple, which was so popular that John Chapman and Eric Merriman wrote a comedy playhouse pilot titled Happy Ever After that was broadcast on the 7th of May 1974. As Series 1 of Happy Ever After followed just 2 months later, it's clear the BBC must have sensed that this format had potential, as the series had been made before the pilot even aired. In Happy Ever After, Terry, Scott and June Whitfield play Terry and June Fletcher, a middle-aged, middle-class couple living in a suburban home. Their two grown-up daughters have finally left home, leaving Terry and June to anticipate a life of peace, quiet and domestic bliss. Their domestic idyll is quickly shattered when Dotty Aunt Lucy, played by Beryl Cook, unexpectedly moves in. But her whimsical behaviour is not the biggest issue. Chaos of varying degrees is regularly created by man-child Terry and his often foolhardy, incompetent and obsessive schemes which invariably went wrong. Meanwhile, long-suffering June constantly picks up the pieces. A recurring theme for Happy Ever After and its successor Terry and June seems to be the disdain shown by critics despite the show being a hit with the public. It is true that it was unashamedly middle-of-the-road fare, but there was praise for the contrasting comic talents of Terry, Scott and June Whitfield, and the scripts were pretty strong. The show had a slightly different tone to its successor, but that's probably at least partly due to it being an earlier iteration of the format before it might have lost all its sparkle, which is typical criticism of a long-running series. While Happy Ever After may not have garnered effusive praise from critics during its initial run, partly as comedy taste shifted, retrospective views acknowledge its strengths as a well-written and performed sitcom. Happy Ever After ran for 5 series plus 2 Christmas specials, ending in April 1979. The primary reason for its conclusion was that the writers felt the programme had run out of ideas. John Chapman, one of the original writers, publicly stated he had reached his creative limit. The BBC was reluctant to give up on such a highly successful and popular comedic partnership. The on-screen rapport between Terry, Scott and June Whitfield was widely recognised, and they were well established as a notable television duo in the public perception, with some viewers even mistakenly assuming that they were married in real life. So, a plan was hatched. Bring in new writers to inject new life and ideas into the concept. Possible legal complications and a desire for a fresh start meant a change of title. Happy Ever After became the rather predictable Terry and June. The characters, while basically the same, were given a new surname, Medford instead of Fletcher, and moved their home location to Purley, Surrey. This maintained the suburban setting and meant there would be new neighbours and different location-based comedic possibilities. The main characteristics of Terry, the bumbling enthusiast, and June, the long-suffering wife, remained the same, but there was no longer any Aunt Lucy. This put the focus onto the couple and allowed for more dynamic interactions with a new set of recurring characters. And to round it off, a jolly new signature tune, Bellhop by John Shakespeare, completed the new identity. The changes were clear but not so broad to make the show unrecognisable from its predecessor. So, just 7 months after the last episode of Happy Ever After, the first episode of Terry and June aired and continued for 9 series over 8 years. For many, Terry and June was the epitome of gentle, inoffensive, family-friendly viewing. However, this did not prevent TV streaming service BritBox from putting a trigger warning on the first episode when the Medfords are seen moving into their new home. Terry accidentally gives the impression that he is racist by telling an Indian character he cannot buy the house. The for sale sign is still displayed despite Terry's attempts to remove it. The show still provided a reliable half hour of predictable mishaps and misunderstandings set against a backdrop of comfortable suburban life. Fans appreciated its innocence, its lack of challenging themes or offensive humour. Audiences had grown to love the central duo of Terry, Scott and June Whitfield. It was seen as a safe, warm and nostalgic escape. Some critics and viewers considered the show to lack originality and contemporary appeal. Even during its original broadcast, they noted that it followed traditional sitcom conventions with humour based on slapstick, Terry's clumsy character and June's patient demeanour. The plots were often seen as repetitive, centering on minor domestic issues without significant consequences. Compared to emerging alternative comedies of the time, such as The Young Ones and Not the 9 O'Clock News, this show was viewed as representative of a previous style of sitcom. Terry Scott's performance of the accident-prone, pompous and childlike husband was appreciated by some viewers. June Whitfield as his wife, who is sensible, patient, often took responsibility for resolving the mess caused by Terry's actions. Their relationship represents established marital tropes through comedic exaggeration. Terry's extreme naivety and clumsiness was considered tiresome and unbelievable by critics. His constant blunders became repetitive and frustrating, making it hard to empathise with him. June's eternal patience was also criticised as unrealistic. Some felt she was too much of a doormat, lacking agency or a personality beyond reacting to Terry. The parent-child dynamic often observed in their relationship was not appealing to all. The writing was praised by some for its clean, simple jokes and straightforward comic situations. It delivered exactly what its audience expected: a clear setup, a farcical complication and a relatively neat resolution. However, a significant criticism was the show's perceived lack of sharp wit or clever dialogue. The jokes were often signposted, the plots predictable, and the overall impression was of a show that aimed for broad appeal over comedic sophistication. Reviewers frequently called the humour stale or insipid. For those aware of Happy Ever After, Terry and June came across as a cynical, lazy retread. It was seen as an unoriginal attempt by the BBC to cash in on a popular formula without investing in new creative ideas. This perception contributed to its reputation as a safe and cosy show that lacked ambition. Many viewers and critics who had seen both shows often felt that Happy Ever After was superior, particularly due to the presence of Aunt Lucy and what they perceived as sharper writing in its early series. Despite the mostly cosmetic changes, the absence of legal action by John Chapman remains a mystery given the striking similarities. I hope you've enjoyed this little trip down memory lane exploring the intertwined worlds of Happy Ever After and Terry and June. What are your thoughts on these classic comfort food sitcoms? Did you love them or did they leave you wanting more? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video please hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into British sitcom stories and trivia. Thanks so much for watching.